As threat of a new COVID variant, Omicron looms large, states have imposed guidelines to contain the threat of spread of the virus. Maharashtra, after reference center over mandatory RT-PCR for domestic travellers from other states, extended the validity of RT-PCR reports for 72 hours. In exceptional cases, testing may also be allowed on arrival at airport. Mumbai airport operator has communicated to all domestic airlines that they shall not board any passengers for landing in Mumbai without negative RT-PCR report 72 hours prior to departure. Straying from centre's guidelines, Maharashtra has specified that the passengers coming from at-risk countries shall mandatorily undergo institutional quarantine for 1 week and take RT-PCR tests on the 2nd, 4th and 7th day post-arrival. Centre, on the other hand, in its guidelines has also said travellers from at-risk nations will need to take RT-PCR test on arrival, and if negative, they have to undergo home quarantine for 7 days, followed by retest on 8th day. Centres urge Maharashtra government to implement uniform guidelines. Let's now listen to what the Aviation Minister said in the Parliament with regards to this.
पिछले कई दिनों में ये ओमिक्रॉन जो वेरिएंट आया है कोविड का, इसके आधार पर दोबारा पूरा विश्व सचेत हो चुका है। WHO और बाकी एजेंसीज ने भी कहा है कि सचेतता हमें रखनी होगी। वर्तमान में 31 देशों के साथ हमारा एयर बबल एग्रीमेंट है और 10 देशों के साथ हमारा प्रस्ताव भी है एयर बबल एग्रीमेंट की शुरुआत करने के लिए। जिन 31 देशों के साथ हमारा एयर बबल एग्रीमेंट है, उन 31 देशों में कई देशों में हमने वृद्धि भी लाई है। उदाहरण के तौर पर यूनाइटेड किंगडम हो, अमेरिका के साथ आवागमन की सुविधा शुरू हुई है जो नवंबर तक बंद हुई थी, केवल स्टूडेंट्स के लिए और डिप्लोमेट्स के लिए शुरुआत हुई थी। सिंगापुर के साथ शुरुआत हुई है, लेकिन हमें दोनों को एक तरीके से संगम रखना होगा। स्वास्थ्य की चिंता, जनता की चिंता और आवागमन की सुविधा भी। तो वर्तमान में 11 देशों के लिए हमने एट रिस्क उन 11 देशों को रखा है। जिन देशों से हमारे यात्री भारत आएंगे, उनकी सबकी टेस्टिंग हमें सुनिश्चित करनी होगी। वो 11 देश हैं यूरोप के सारे कंट्रीज, यूनाइटेड किंगडम समेत, साउथ अफ्रीका, ब्राजील, बोट्सवाना, चाइना, मॉरिशस, न्यूजीलैंड, जिम्बाब्वे, सिंगापुर, हांगकांग और इजराइल। कल से ये प्रक्रिया शुरू हुई है, जैसे आपको विदित है, और टेस्ट करके सारे यात्री आराम से अब अपना जीवन यापन देश में कर पा रहे हैं। 15 दिन की सीमा हमने रखी है। उनको क्वारंटीन 7 दिन के लिए रखना, होम क्वारंटीन 8वें दिन पे टेस्ट करके, उसके बाद अगले 7 दिन मॉनिटर करके फिर वे अपना आवागमन शुरुआत उनकी हो सकती है। इसे हमें ध्यान में रखना होगा और दोनों का हमें संगम बनाना होगा।
Let's now take a look at the situation at Delhi airport amidst the Omicron threat.
Why are you insisting on RT-PCR if I am double vaccinated and I want to come to Mumbai?
Yeah, absolutely. You are right, and we will be reviewing it. We had actually, after issuance of the order, we have deferred it at present, and we will be amending it as we will fall in line with whatever the other states are, or we will fall in line as per the Government of India.
You're giving us a very big news point which we should flash. You're saying Maharashtra will defer the rules and you will fall in line with the rest of the country. Am I to understand, therefore, that for now at least you're keeping these guidelines on hold of RT-PCR and institutional quarantine?
No, not all, I mean to say, but the interstate actually is a hardship for everyone to do the RT-PCR test for every citizen flying from Delhi to Mumbai and from Mumbai to Bangalore. Right. So all these passengers will be facing a lot of hardship. So I think that is really a point which needs to be amended. Right. And so I had spoken to the Chief Secretary. Our Honorable CM is in the hospital at present, and so he has also spoken to the Honorable CM. And we are 100% amending that hardship clauses which has been mentioned in the orders issued.
I have someone who's travelled from London to Delhi. आपकी कितने घंटे की फ्लाइट थी?
9 घंटे की फ्लाइट थी, 2 घंटे पहले ही डिले हो चुकी थी और यहाँ पे आने के बाद इन्होंने RT-PCR के नाम पे 7 घंटे खराब किया है।
तो आप अंदर 7 घंटे तक बैठे?
हाँ, 7 घंटे तक वेट किया। अभी 4 बजे लैंड हुई थी सुबह में फ्लाइट, तो अभी मैं 11 बजे निकलूँ तकरीबन।
अच्छा, तो अंदर का क्या प्रोविजन क्या है? जब आप फ्लाइट से उतरते हैं उसके बाद आपको बोला जाता है कि आप टेस्ट करवाइए?
हाँ, उन्होंने रोक लिया हमको, जो ऑफिसर थे अंदर, और रोकने के बाद उन्होंने बोले RT-PCR कराइए आप। उसके लिए लाइन में लगे, फिर बोले वो ऑनलाइन रजिस्ट्रेशन करो पहले। तो ऑनलाइन एयर सुविधा पे रेडी कर चुके थे हम, RT-PCR भी अपलोड कर चुके थे एयर सुविधा के पोर्टल पे। तो उसके बाद भी उन्होंने दोबारा से फिर वही प्रोसेस
पूरा करवाया और आपको 7 घंटे बैठा रहना?
हाँ, और 7 घंटे के बाद रिपोर्ट उन्होंने दी, तब आने दिया वो।
So, this is what most of the travellers at the moment are facing. They have to sit inside for more than 7 hours, which in itself is a very harrowing experience. We are standing right outside the international arrival, and many people, like the one we spoke with, have been telling us that the flight landed early morning, but they are coming out only now because the entire process is very cumbersome.
Let's now take you through the Omicron curbs imposed by different states. Let's start off with Maharashtra. From high-risk nations, you need negative RT-PCR before you depart. From other countries which are not high-risk, negative RT-PCR before departure. Second RT-PCR test on arrival in India if you're coming in from high-risk nations. From other countries, sample testing on arrival in India. Genome sequencing in case you test positive if you're coming in from a high-risk nation. But if you're not coming in from a high-risk nation, then too there is going to be genome sequencing in case you turn positive. From high-risk nations, if you're coming in, mandatory 7-day quarantine for all. Other countries, 14-day home quarantine for all the negative passengers. Third COVID test after 7 days if you're coming from a high-risk nation, and no further test required if you're coming from other countries. Let's go to Delhi now. There is going to be testing on arrival for people traveling from high-risk nations. If negative, there's going to be quarantine and retest after 7 days just to be doubly sure. If negative again, self-monitor for 7 more days. If positive, then quarantine at a designated hospital, which means if you're testing positive, you will be in institutional quarantine. And that sample is going to be sent for genome sequencing for assessment. Those below 5 years are exempted from this particular testing, but the children who are symptomatic will be tested for COVID. All international passengers are going to be tested in the state of Karnataka, and if positive, will be shifted to hospitals. So that is the guideline coming in from Karnataka. If symptomatic but negative, home quarantine for 1 week, and there'll be another test on the 5th day and again on the 8th day. If negative, then you will be home quarantine for 1 week and you will test after 7 days. This is for Karnataka. Now Tamil Nadu. Negative report is a must for foreign flyers. That's Tamil Nadu. Passengers from at-risk nations will be monitored closely. 4 health officials are going to be monitoring the airport too. Video recording of RT-PCR tests will take place too. In Gujarat, mandatory RT-PCR tests at airport. Testing a must for passengers from at-risk nations. This is as far as Gujarat is concerned. So these are the different guidelines that have come out by different states. We'll continue updating this because these are fast changing. Now, countries around the world are imposing travel curbs to keep Omicron spread at bay. Here's a report.
Many countries, including the United States, France and Japan, are putting in place tougher border controls and rules for air travelers to guard against the new coronavirus Omicron variant. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says all air travelers entering the country, including American citizens and foreign nationals, will have to show a negative COVID test performed within 1 day of departure. The World Health Organization said at least 56 countries were reportedly implementing travel measures as of November 28th. But the UN Health Agency is warning that, quote, blanket travel bans will not prevent the international spread, and they place a heavy burden on lives and livelihoods. So far, at least 24 countries may have reported cases of the variant, but some of the early indications were most cases were mild, with none severe, according according to a WHO official.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
That's what European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told a news conference.
Vaccinate, boost.
She also emphasized the role of vaccines and urged EU member states to step up inoculation campaigns. Britain and the United States have also expanded their booster programs in response to the new variant. In South Africa, in the region where the variant was first reported a week ago, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases flagged a large number of COVID-19 admissions among infants aged under 2 as an area of concern. But an expert at the institute cautioned against linking that with Omicron just yet.
La décision est donc adoptée.
Meanwhile, the WHO agreed on Wednesday to launch negotiations on an international pact to prevent and control future pandemics. The agreement is hoping to cover issues from data sharing and genome sequencing of emerging viruses to equitable distribution of vaccines and drugs derived from research.
Amidst growing Omicron threat, Union Health Minister is holding a meeting. Mansukh Mandavia is chairing a meeting with states on airport screening and surveillance with airport public health officials and port health officials. India is on high alert excuse me, as 6 international travellers tested COVID positive amidst Omicron threat. On the first day of operation of the guidelines for international travellers issued by the centre, 3,476 passengers from 11 international flights from at-risk nations were screened on Wednesday. 6 passengers were COVID positive. Samples of the COVID positive passengers have been sent for genome sequencing to the lab. A total of 11 international flights landed at various airports of the country, excepting Lucknow from at-risk nations.
If one sees that the first report was from South Africa, the report was on the 9th of November. So during that time, many travels have happened all over the world and from and within South Africa. So one would not be surprised if this variant is detected within India. It's just a matter of time, of course. But it should not necessarily cause a panic because majority of these infections might be asymptomatic or might cause mild diseases.